Hey, we're here at Local Music Mondays on GTV3, where we like to keep you informed about all that's going on with the music industry in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm here with Scott Terell, the maestro of the Lexington Philharmonic. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks.
Good.
Thanks
I'm
for
glad
having
to
me.
see you. Oh, yeah. I'm so glad
Appreciate
you're
it.
here. I'm also excited to talk to you about one of many projects you do every year in Lexington,
Right.
the Picnic with the Pops. And so let's start talking about your history with that, because I think you have
Right.
an interesting history with Picnic with the Pops.
Well, I mean, maybe we can talk a little broader about the Pops in general. I mean, it's been, I think, over 35 years now. It's been in existence here in Lexington. I took over with the Philharmonic in 2009, but my first experience conducting Picnic with the Pops was 2010. And you know, I was aware of the history, but at the same time, you know, I think with anybody, you have what you like to think maybe would be a good event for people to be around. So, you know, one of the things that I really try to do when I came on board at the Phil and the commission, the Picnic Commission, was to make sure that each summer that we do something very different, that it's not sort of locked into the same old sort of thing. It's no different than, say, if you went to the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. You know, there's something very different every night. We're not obviously as large scale as that, but at the same token, I wanted to make sure there was diverse. So the very
Well,
first
it's
one,
once a year, so it's important.
It's tough, yeah.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that that there's a degree of interest. My first year when I did it, was sort of a risk because there were a couple things that changed. The first was we went from the horse park, which historically had done Picnic.
Right, so we probably should tell our audience
Yeah.
that was the year of the World Equestrian
Right.
Games.
So we were not that was not available to be used, obviously, in preparation for the World Equestrian Games. So we made a move to Keeneland, more out of necessity, just because we needed a venue, and that was. So everything was new that year. I mean, there was a new stage setup. It was a new venue, and then on top of that, the first one we did was Cirque à la Symphony. So a lot of people thought, well, what is this? You know, we have people. What does that mean? A circus with an
Swinging
orchestra?
from the rafters.
Yeah, and so you build a stage, and you have people flying above the orchestra, and you know, and I think a lot of people were really surprised on how entertaining it was, and very, you know, maybe different than the year before, which was ABBA. And then we've had a group, Tiempo Libre from Miami, Florida, a very high octane Cuban group.
I have to interrupt you again here and say
Yeah.
that was my first year on the commission.
yeah, okay.
And I remember at one point turning around and looking back, and there was a giant conga line
Yes,
of
absolutely.
about 100 people,
Yes,
all the way from the back
yeah,
up to the front.
to the stage, yeah.
And I think the dancers broke the stage that year.
Yeah, there was a little stage in front of the orchestra that had some technical issues. Let's just leave it at that. And then we went to a guy named Matthew Dusk. It was more of a Las Vegas night, I think, sort of Rat Pack, I'd call it. And then we moved last year to Bugs Bunny. You know, Warner Brothers, the cartoons that historically had been done in the 50s that everybody knows, but now they're done with the actual music live, and so they're very different events, each one. And I think that's what's really one of the more important things. But also, you know, when we moved to Keeneland in 2010, it was, like I said, a move out of necessity. But in the end, it turned out to be, I think, a very good move for the Picnic with the Pops, because in some ways there's a natural amphitheater there, a slope, and that the stage is constructed, and sort of the way the sun sets just at the perfect moment as the concert's about ready to start. It really is a lovely venue, and you know, with the ease of getting in and out of Keeneland, it was decided after the first year of the move that was the place we needed to actually stay. And we've been there now 4 summers.
Yes.
This will be the 5th summer at Keeneland already. So, and now I think people people like going out to Keeneland. So this is it's sort of a natural. I think it's sort of a natural match. And it's quiet at Keeneland in August, except for this weekend.
Yes.
So they also like having this event.
Yeah, Keeneland has been great partners, and I
Yeah.
think also for our audience, because they may not know, and some people watching may be interested, the commission put in the infrastructure,
Right.
made the infrastructure for that permanent, so there's electricity there.
The
Someone
ground
wants to
has
rent
been
a-
leveled so that the
Yeah.
stage can be
Yeah.
constructed without any issues of sort of an unlevel surface.
Yeah.
But the power has been sent to the site now, which wasn't the case when we first started. So both Keeneland and the commission invested long term in this site. So that
and with hopes that more people might use it
right,
throughout
and-
the year.
Right, and those certainly has been discussed, in terms of the evolution of Picnic. Where is it going to go? But now the site is available to be used. It has the capacity to be used, and so I think now it's, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's I think it was serendipity that we had to make the move, but in reality, that move I think necessitated I don't want to say it was better, but I think it is
It's
working
different.
well. It's working well for
Yeah.
us.
And it's different, and I know we want to talk about music, but I think this is all pertinent to our conversation.
Right.
I think one of the other great things that happened out at Keeneland that everybody's not aware of is that it opened up the opportunity to make the event more accessible to more people.
Correct.
So the commission has worked very hard to really let people know that we have general admission
Right. I mean, I think
seating
that's- right,
now.
exactly.
And this year we've brought in a couple of food trucks so people can buy food on site.
Right. Historically, it had been, sort of the Boston Pops kind of set up where there'd be tables and people would bring their food and decorate tables, and that's the way it had always been set up. And when we started at Keeneland, it was set up similar to that. But Keeneland offers the ability, like you said, if people don't want a picnic, if they just want to come out and hear the concert, and not be one of sort of in that premier table area where that's what they do, there are spots for general admission, which in some ways I think we've seen, and we can safely say, we've seen since that's been launched, the general admission has gone up every year in terms of
Yes.
the number of people who are just simply, maybe they don't want to do picnic or tables, but they may want to be out on the lawn and just come to the concert. And so we've seen a growth in that area, which tells me something. I think that
Yes.
people like the ability to just go outside and hear an event with maybe not all the other stuff. But the thing about the food trucks, I think, is also interesting because we often hear from people it's just so much work to get all of these things. And some people really love it. Some people are like, I'm getting out of work, I'm tired, I don't want to do it.
Right.
And with the growing food truck industry here in Lexington, again, it seemed like a natural opportunity for people to take advantage of the event and not feel like they have to plan so vigorously. If they just want to show up with a group of 8 people, buy dinner, and sit down and eat, great, then they can do that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the ones who want to go a little further, of course, there's still the table decorating contest, which will be super fun this
Yeah.
year, I'm expecting, because so let's start talking about the guest artists that you've brought in this
Right.
year.
And so this year we decided to go, a lot of discussion, but I think the gentleman that we're bringing in, his name is Michael Cavanaugh. He's had great success over the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. He's played in a lot of the major venues with a lot of major orchestras, and his sort of, he's a pianist. He's a very, very good pianist, but his strength is the music of Elton John. So it's eerily close to the voice of Elton John. That's what's sometimes scary about it. But you forget how, and so the show is the music of Elton John and others. There are, and others too, that people will sort of know. And he's been an entertainer for decades, Elton John. But so it's sort of a situation where you have a lot of his most famous music, but other groups like Chicago and old time rock and roll, and
Kind of from the 70s.
Yeah, there are a couple other things dropped in that are certainly indicative of the time of Elton John.
Yeah.
But Michael Cavanaugh is, like I said, very talented, very high energy group of people, and he has a great sense of making the orchestra, because I think we sort of forget that about Elton John's music. While it is a band, it's highly instrumental, and he utilizes a lot of orchestral sounds in what he does. And so this was a natural mix. And so it is sort of a big band, a big sort of band of many things. So when it comes to the theme of Elton John, which is the evening, last year with Warner Brothers, I think, as I heard from a lot of people, that they were hitting eBay and Amazon looking for masks and all these things from the 70s that they maybe had discarded, to try to table decorate and, great Bugs Bunny flair everywhere. This year we'll see what people do with Elton John. I assume there'll be something involving glasses or
I must admit, I've already been
lines.
Googling Elton John glasses to see if I could get some for my tables.
So yeah, when it comes to table decorating, so that's where it's it's sort of open to the creativity, and I'm always stunned when I go out there. I get to roll in, about an hour before the show and just sort of walk around and I always enjoy walking around looking at the tables, and the amount of creativity and energy that goes into some of these tables is pretty impressive.
Oh, it's extremely impressive, and I, anytime I talk to someone who's never been and they say, what time does the show start? I always tell them, well, the music starts at 8:30, but you want to be there at least by 7:30 or 7:30, so you have time to walk around and look and see what people have
constructed.
Yeah, I mean, last year there was a live rabbit there.
There was indeed.
The year we had Matt Dusk, a few people went to the Las Vegas Chapel of Love, and there were some chapels actually built right there.
Right on the table, yeah. So,
right on the table.
I mean, this is your typical sort of, what is it, about 3x8 table, and people just come up with these incredible ways to decorate them. But I think that's what's fun, which is there are those who really do that. There are those who really don't do that at tables. They just want to come and sort of be with their friends, and and the evening is very relaxed. But it's I'm going to go ahead and knock on wood, because I'm just in my 5 years that I've watched, we have not had a rain date.
Yes.
In my 5 years running. So I'm pretty proud of the fact that I wish I could say I had some control over that. But I'm running a streak right now, and so it's always been beautiful. We've always succeeded in terms of weather, which is sometimes, a challenge. But
I think have you had some? Well, let's talk about the process for working with this special guest star and what you do with your orchestra.
Right. Well, first off, who the artist is, the music actually has just arrived here in Lexington. It's sent in advance. The band sends the orchestral, we call it the orchestral charts, a couple weeks in advance. We make sure that they're prepped and sent out to our players probably 3 weeks in advance of the time we meet. This is a little more compact than we normally do, because summer schedules are such that both in terms of the artist, but the artist comes in on Wednesday. I will probably meet with them myself right before we meet with the orchestra, and then it's just one rehearsal with everybody. So, in advance, obviously our players prep their own parts. It's sort of hard to do without the band. We can't do it without the band there. So we have to, so it's very quick. It goes together very fast. And, our orchestra is very, they're very facile, very talented. They're very quick in picking up what's going to happen. But that's the way professional orchestra rolls. I mean, it's sometimes we don't have the luxury of a lot of rehearsal time. These guys come in, I meet with them maybe for an hour, then we go put it together. And then the next night, we'll see how it goes. But the music has arrived. I've looked at it. It's it's not that it's easy, it's just very clear. So it should be really not an issue to put it together. But yeah, for me, I like the sort of fast process. It's not, no time to waste. You got to get going. So.
Well, you like to, I think one of the things I really enjoy about you is that you like to kind of step outside the box and take lots of chances. So let's go beyond Picnic with the Pops and talk a little bit about all of the things that you have coming up this year.
Right.
Can we talk about that now?
Sure, I'd love to. Well, I mean, Picnic sort of launches. It doesn't really launch our season, but a lot of players that we have tend to go away to summer festivals and teaching or other sorts of professional development on their own. So most of our players come back in August, but really the full brunt of our roster comes back in September when we start. You know, at the Philharmonic, we've done well. The audience has grown since I arrived, probably about 20-25%, which is a good trend to have. But we've also, like you said, and when we did Picnic, I think one of the things, as it has evolved, is we're tending to listen more to what our community wants us to do and react better. I felt when I arrived that the orchestra needed to be artistically play at a little higher level, which we're starting to do, I think, consistently well. But also be more diverse in our programming and more responsive in our programming to how our community is changing. You know, when I arrived in 2009, downtown was just starting, I would say, to really get some a little momentum. Right before the pavilion opened, I was coming in right around that time, and then you sort of have watched over the 5 years I've been here how the downtown particularly has really had a big resurgence of a place to go. We currently play at the Singletary Center, at least I have for the 4 years I've been here. Next year, we've made a conscious effort to switch to split our season between there and the Opera House. That was a big change logistically, scheduling, but one of the reasons why was we wanted to have a presence back downtown. And secondly, we wanted to be able to offer concerts on Saturdays. We historically have always played Friday. So again, broadening our ability by venue, by date, and also when we made the move to the Opera House, the programs that I've selected to put in there are really specific to the capacity that house can do. It's a more advanced house in terms of production things that it can do over Singletary. Singletary is a bit more of a concert hall. The Opera House is really more of a proscenium hall that you can do some unique technical things that you can't do at the Singletary Center as effectively. So anyway, with that said, you know, we open at Singletary, but we open on a Saturday. So we're opening with a pianist who's been with us before, but has since been named the artist in residence with the New York Philharmonic since he was here last. So he's had a very successful career, sort of a big, you know, Ravel, Bolero, and Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto, lots of big showy pieces that a lot of people like, is how we're starting the year. But then we go to the Opera House in October for a combination of Beethoven and Philip Glass called Heroes, and one's called Beethoven's Eroica Symphony, the Heroic Symphony, the third, and then Icarus at the Edge of Time by Philip Glass, which is a film. The Opera House has the capacity to really execute that film as it should be done. It was made in 2010. The narrator is Frank Walker. So that's a nice literary composition and musical composition. But Philip Glass is, you know, if you're a real independent arts film person and watch his film scores, you know, music and film with him are very much synchronous. And this is one of those pieces where we, you know, it's narrated, the music evolves the story of Icarus, the boy who flies too close to the sun. So that's our second concert, and those will be at the Opera House, 2 performances. So that'll be exciting for us. We do a big Carmina Burana, which is you know, one of the great sort of choral pieces, but we're putting together 5 college choruses. We did that a couple years ago. It was greatly successful. That'll be November. December, we do our Messiah performances, and we've added something new this year, again at the Opera House, which is our New Year's Eve concert with a girl named Ute Lemper, and it's a Moulin Rouge theme. So, yeah, Paris, sort of 1920s Berlin, a lot of those sort of Edith Piaf songs, beautiful music, and we're going to sort of change the stage into that French cabaret look. So that'll be our New Year's. It's the first time we performed on New Year's Eve. So we saw an opportunity that people in Lexington don't really have anything to do on New Year's Eve. There's not really an event. And a lot of people go downtown and eat, but there wasn't. So we thought this might be a good initiation, because a lot of orchestras do New Year's Eve concerts, but we wanted it to be maybe a little more festive, so we chose this theme.
Yeah.
February, we're back at the Opera House, where again, film, music makes an appearance. We're doing composer Tan Dunn, who wrote the music for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon several years ago, and we're pairing him with Tchaikovsky. So the film music, certainly Chinese in origin and sound, along with music that's not Chinese in origin and sound, and that's Tchaikovsky. Then maybe our biggest production of the year is in April, back at the Opera House. It's a piece called Aina de Mar, which translates into Fountain of Tears. Composer is Osvaldo Goliath. He's an Argentinian composer, still living. This piece won it won a Grammy for Best Contemporary Composition a few years ago. It's really it's a story about the tragic death of Lorca, the poet, and his influence on art, particularly in his native country, and how his death really inspired a revolution to speak out against the Spanish, the Spanish dictatorship, and how art in the end will always speak above that. Fountain of Tears, Aina de Mar was the place he was assassinated. He was executed, Lorca. So that's sort of the crux of the story. But the music is inspired by flamenco in nature. And so it's flamenco, there's tango, it's certainly very much Latin in style. And we are partnering for the first time, and since I've been here, with Kentucky Opera, which is the professional opera company in Louisville, and they will be taking the lead roles in the opera, and then some of the smaller secondary roles in the cast and chorus are going to be done by the UK Opera Theatre. So it's an opportunity for the professional opera singers from Kentucky Opera to work with some of the better students at UK Opera Theatre, and for us to sort of put it all together. We've hired a stage director for this production. It'll be semi-staged at the Opera House, and we're using Flamenco Louisville. So there will be dance, there'll be music, there'll be certainly acting, theatrical. It's a big undertaking, and it's a piece that was only written about 10 years ago. So it will be very different, and I think we're kind of nervous about it, but we feel very good about the partners we've engaged, and they have all been exceedingly excited to take the project on. They know the work, they know the story, and they think it's a great, I think it's an opera that's here to last. It's been at Santa Fe, it's been at Houston, it's just staged this year in Cincinnati and in Philadelphia, and I think it's great that we can provide something so unique here. And that's our big one in April, and then we finish out in Singletary in May with a violinist playing the Sibelius Concerto, and then sort of a big orchestra showpiece called Symphonie Fantastique of Berlioz. So that's our year. So it's very different. We go back and forth between Singletary and the Opera House, but the things that we do at both, I think, are very compelling and work very well for each venue. But
And you've
part
got
of
the
that,
three big C's here. You've got contemporary, classic, and a continuing theme on local music Mondays, regardless of the genre,
is collaboration. Yeah, we have worked very hard. When I arrived here, it's something I believe very strongly, and I mean, this college chorus thing in the fall, we first did it a couple years ago, and people thought there's no way you can put 6 college choruses together and it can come out. And when it was all said and done, it was such an incredible musical experience. My orchestra turned around and just in awe of how well the chorus could sing. And the college kids, what a great experience for them that they play with a professional orchestra in a piece that, that they're going to talk about. I know as a musician, I mean, one of the things I recall as a student was, when I was in college chorus and we got to sing with the professional orchestra, it's a life-changing event. And whether or not they're musicians permanently or not, they are advocates for music. That's an experience that is more important in some ways than whether or not it's part of their musical careers, as it were. But this we did it with great success, and so I said to them, a lot of the same chorus masters, I said, we're going to do this one, which is bigger and more difficult. And my concern was that it's a bigger and more intense project than the last one. Would they do it? And within 2 days, everybody had already said yes.
Yeah, because that's the fourth great C,
yeah,
challenge.
Yeah, they want the challenge.
Like to be challenged.
And we have so many wonderful musical groups of various things, but it's often interesting. You sometimes get siloed into your little whatever, and for us, to really bring Berea College next to Eastern or EKU, next to UK, next to Center, next to Asbury, next to Transy, all on the same stage. Suddenly, then the experience of making music within their collective places is not so siloed. They realize that there is a, sort of a world out there away from their little, a box. And I think that's one of the things that we've worked very hard at doing, like the opera this year. Here's a wonderful chance for these students at UK as they're beginning their careers to work with a professional stage director and some of the artists from Kentucky Opera, that they get to interface in a way that's supportive, challenging, and nurturing. And you don't always get to do that. Sometimes, in the profession of music making, professional anyway, you're thrown off the deep end and you have to go.
Yeah.
So we have that ability here. And I think being a smaller community allows you to be more flexible, and if you collaborate and bring people in on projects, the audience will usually tend to go with you. The other thing I've been proud of at the Phil is we've done a fair bit of contemporary music, living composers, and it's not a dirty word anymore, as it were, say, because some people aren't afraid of it. I think if you present it in the context, I think it's a way that a lot of people, we've had growth in our audience, I think, because we've done contemporary music. Because I think we talk a lot, at least I think a lot, about the millennials, the Generation Xers, what gets them interested in the arts, coming to things. And they want to relate to something that's happening to them now. And they will support what's been, what we consider, I'd say, traditional classical, if it's given the context around the fact that it's not abstract. Beethoven was a maverick, as Philip Glass is. And when you put them next to each other, while the sound world is different, the idea isn't. So I think there's context, there is an opportunity for a little curiosity, but contemporary, I don't shy away from doing it. So I think that's important. It's we are a living entity, not a museum.
Right, exactly. I could stay here and talk to you all day. I swear I could. Because there's so many things we didn't touch on.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing you back.
Okay.
I'm bringing you back because we've also got to talk about
I think it's
the way you go out into the world and represent Lexington in other orchestras, which I think is really important and awesome.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I think we have to come back and talk about that.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
But just tell me where you're headed next, because I know we had a hard time getting you in here.
Well, I have this next. This year's busy year. I actually have 2 big engagements outside of Lexington that are taking a lot of my time. I'm doing an opera in Phoenix at Arizona Opera, and then I'm doing a big show in Denver in December, in addition to everything that we're doing here. So my summer is traveling. I usually go to music festivals and scout, and I just got back from the Aspen Music Festival in school in Aspen, Colorado. So I usually go out there and, I listen to singers and concerts and recruit artists and, so yeah, I tend to work even when I'm not on the stage.
Right, yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here. People can get tickets to Lexington Philharmonic shows at lexphil.com.
Correct. Lexphil.org, actually.
.org.
Yep.
Lexpops.com, I think, for
I think that's correct.
Picnic with the Pops tickets. Thank you so much, guys. We got to close it up now. We'll be back next Monday with another episode of Local Music Mondays. All day on Mondays, you can hear local music on GTV3 on Lexington Cable or live stream from lexingtonky.gov. Have a great week.